Trigger warning for the latter part of the video. Okay, before you click off the video with a dislike, let me just get this out of the way. I like Ragatha as a character and as a person. She has a caring soul and is always looking out for others before her own interests, and her only direct sin committed in the show was wanting to be liked, which is depressingly relatable. She herself is not a horrible person by any means, especially with the company that she keeps. But lately, I've been seeing this take going around ever since episode 6 dropped that the Ragatha haters need to apologize for their slander. While I agree with that much, since the developments in episode 6 clarified Ragatha's motives as a character, those people doubled down saying that the Ragatha hate came out of nowhere. That not only was it overblown, but it should never have been a thing in the first place. Yeah, no, I disagree. Overblown, sure, but a portion of the Ragatha hate came from a genuine place, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise. What we're not about to do is write off how a section of fans have felt about her for almost a full year, even with Jax stealing the spotlight for being the most emotionally maladjusted adult in indie animation. I've seen YouTubers I like wrote off that part of the fandom that sees her in disdain as superficial retroactively before episode 6. While that's probably true for some, I'm not naive, of course, it's not everyone, and I find that disgusting how misrepresenting that blanket sentiment is. If you're Team Ragatha, hear me out, okay? Because these characters are nuanced as sin, the purpose of this video isn't to sway you to the other side necessarily. You just need to understand where certain Ragatha haters are coming from, even if you disagree with their point of view by the end. As we go through the video, a main theme will be how different people are different people to different people. It'll make more sense as we go along, but TLDW, people have valid reasons for feeling a certain type of way about Ragatha. If you've watched my previous video, you know that I think the writing for the Amazing Digital Circus characters are more complex than given credit. The series is presenting us with the idea that the characters we've been following for the past 2 years are not derivative archetypes, but people with all the messy self-contradictions and complex introspection that comes with authentic humanity. Gooseworks has brought us amazing indie content in terms of writing, animation, and voice cast, so I intend to hold her character writing to that standard going forward. I hold the opinion that a lot of the complaints, praises, and criticisms of each character are all true to some degree, rather than one angle being more true than another. For simplicity's sake, I'll address each angle of Ragatha's perception individually in an iceberg-style structure, descending from surface-level reasons to deep-seated personal trauma. Yes, it gets that deep, don't worry about it. Even though I'm addressing these angles one at a time, keep in mind that my final opinion on why parts of the fandom feel the way that they do about her is a varied culmination of what I'll discuss today. Well, with one strong exception. The tip of the iceberg, double standards. I'm going to keep this section brief, not because I'm implying that this isn't a factor as to why Ragatha gets some of the large-scale criticism that she does, but more so because this video is meant to be somewhat of a defense for levels of Ragatha detraction, and I don't defend bad faith criticism. If your discretion of a character involves what they are rather than just the choices they make and the narrative context surrounding their decisions, your priorities aren't worth taken seriously. The reason I have to acknowledge this isn't just because there is truth to this, but because detractors of Ragatha detractors will stop here when it comes to acknowledging why Ragatha hate exists. There is genuine precedent for this angle because of how Team Hearts are treated by other fandom spaces. The most comparative to Katara from Avatar: Last Airbender. Women in media should be allowed to be flawed, and you are allowed to not like a character for their decisions, but the discourse should ideally be consistent with the backlash other characters garner. Even though the Venn diagram of Ragatha haters will include Jax fans going forward, they'll never be the subsect that unironically puts Jax's moral character above Ragatha's. I draw the line there. Slightly below the tip of the iceberg, we have anticipation. See, a while back, Gooseworks had teased a later reveal that was being built up in the background of episodes and would become an iconic part of the show's history. She would later elaborate that the reveal would be akin to a rose diamond, which recontextualizes how we would see the series in retrospect post-reveal. Fans like myself took this as a hint of a possible heel turn for one of the characters. Characters like Kinger and Ragatha, who are universally immensely beloved at the time, would be held under a microscope until further notice. Any action made with the possibility of becoming foreshadowing for the twist became the basis of criticism. And unfortunately for Ragatha, she showed way more flags than anyone else. Episode 4 put her motivations on fraud watch, and it only snowballed from there as that happy mash started to warp. If the emotion isn't happiness or worry, it was a hint. Excuse me, can I just pause and say, Gooseworks, why did you say that? What compelled you to say that? Do you understand the implications of what you're teasing? This is like Impulse invoking Thawne's name when calling Godspeed his arch nemesis. Rose Diamond isn't just iconic, it's scarred a generation! I'm convinced it almost single-handedly taught Gen Z that the generation preceding ain't shit. The Venn diagram of the Steven Universe watchers of yesterday and the Boys Invincible fans of today is a damn dot. The level of disillusionment created a generation of media consumers that are hypercritical of innocently presented characters, jaded to the point where kindness became punk rock. Do not invoke Rose Diamond in vain. That twist better slap. While this is a valid reason to feel a certain type of way about Ragatha, all we can do now is speculate, meaning Ragatha critics don't have anything other than shallow evidence until the series concludes. Heck, my money is on Kinger, despite being the GOAT! Him being the GOAT is what's giving me paranoia right now. Going further down the slope is the notion that Ragatha haters are just Jax fans. They are both very popular characters that come at odds with each other in the show, so their fan bases tend to go to war over their faves. Side note, rip bunny doll shippers, they never stood a chance. This is probably the most innocent reason to dislike Ragatha as a character. You simply prefer the alternative. Not as a person, don't be silly. Jax is just funnier to watch most of the time. He's a crash out with comedic mannerisms voiced by Michael Kovac, whose delivery alone built Jax's audience instantaneously. The thing is, Jax fans who fall here don't hate Ragatha. Not really. Sure, you'll see agenda posting here and there about the Jax mindset, but they'll never truly wish Ragatha harm. It's just funny to see cruel slapstick happen to people, Jax included. This brings me to the next level, in-universe implications. If you're a critic of Ragatha that holds her faults to a higher standard than Jax's, while also bypassing the first level, this is probably where you land. For context, for anyone who hasn't watched the show, first off, why are you here? But second, the show takes place in a digital reality where characters are never in any physical danger. Sure, they can still feel pain, but it never truly lasts. Getting your head blown off in the Amazing Digital Circus is as permanent as caving in someone's skull in Invincible. They operate on Toon Force logic, where not only can their bodies squash and stretch, but they can even self-actualize the world around them, giving themselves ungodly aim, spawning healing butterflies, and even breaking the fourth wall, all comes from the mentality of the characters, with the usual victims of slapstick being the people with the lowest mentalities in the circus. Those characters also being the ones closest to death in this universe, as this reality manipulation comes with the drawback of self-actualizing themselves into abstraction, a fate inevitable for everyone in the circus and one there is no coming back from. With those internal rules placed by Gooseworks, the precedent one would take from a premise like this would be that unlike the real world, physical abuse is relatively inconsequential compared to the long-term ramifications of mental and emotional abuse. In this world, Jax chucking Ragatha in a deep fryer has less consequence than Ragatha irritating a sore subject. In theory, you can get over Jax's physical antics without any fuss, whereas Ragatha's unfiltered moments hold the only true danger in the series. There was an argument to be made there. But episode 4, 5, and 6 slowly established that Jax himself isn't above targeting sore spots either, often more deliberately than Ragatha. He'll almost never acknowledge any wrongdoing on his part, unlike Ragatha, and in practice, his physical humor gets the mental job done over a longer period of time. It's no coincidence that Jax stands that wobbified him for so long are finally acknowledging his wretchedness after episode 6 recontextualized Ragatha's motivations, while also doubling down on Jax's. This is probably where the influx of Jax fans that retracted their anti-Ragatha propaganda resided. In a world where sticks and stones don't break bones, yet words can actually hurt me, Jax was coped into being the lesser of two extremes up until the implication of someone like Jax was expanded upon. Going a step deeper, you don't necessarily have to like Jax to hate on Ragatha, or vice versa. Even though I prefer Jax as a character, I consider Ragatha preferable as a person. For once, an actually relevant consideration, since The Amazing Digital Circus is one of the only shows that properly takes the time to sell the importance of that distinction. So perhaps you do hate Jax for how he strips the humanity from everyone he comes in contact with. Is it too much of a leap to say you don't vibe with Ragatha for lesser but not dissimilar reasons? Ragatha may be caring in nature, but her maternal style of parenting without any children in the room can come off as stripping them of their agency. Obviously, she's coming from a genuine place when she's reaching out to characters like Pomni, Gangle, and even Jax. You can't be mad at someone for trying to open themselves to you, but you can still find their approach off. Ragatha's main motivations for why she is the way she is stems from the need to create an environment for everyone to be happy at the circus and to not be hated herself. In that order. This lack of self-priority will be part of a massive talking point later, but for this level, all you need to understand is that she approaches her relationships in the circus as a mother first, friend second. Her attitude towards Pomni at the beginning seems natural as someone who just wanted to help a new face get acclimated to their situation as seamlessly as possible. It was normal, nice even, but episode 2 is when Ragatha started to not beat the handler allegations. In the middle of the adventure, Pomni told her that hyping up a 25-year-old woman is completely unnecessary, to which she largely ignores. It's subtle, but when you take into account how she reacts whenever Pomni is around potentially bad influences, you start to realize that Ragatha and Pomni aren't peers. In fact, if you pay attention to all of Ragatha's other interactions with the circus members, none of them are. Ragatha herself even commented on how neither Zubul or Gangle ever confide in her organically, which we know they both have the capacity for with each other. Hashtag Abstragedy. It's actually a really sick detail to take note of when I rewatch the series with a friend, but whenever they're talking with her, Ragatha is the one that initiates her conversations every time. In fact, knowing what we know about their interests currently, there's no chance she was approached first. When Pomni suggested that Gangle should talk to Ragatha about her issues, Gangle shoots it down without even a hint of consideration. Gangle admitted that she loves her, but not as someone that she can open up to genuinely. At first it was speculated as a heel turn hint, but in retrospect, perhaps she meant on even footing. I mean, why would she? That's not how Ragatha presents herself most of the time. Not a friend, a caretaker. Anytime someone is talking about Ragatha to someone else, they are quick to highlight flaws in her character like an insult sandwich. The only exception to that isn't a socially adjusted Pomni and Jax's bitch ass is Kinger, because he's the GOAT! Please, for the love of God, don't be evil. This is before episode 7, please don't be evil. But also because Kinger is the only one that honestly mirrors Ragatha's love language every now and then. He might even be the only one who appreciates Ragatha fully as she is due to his nature as a character. He needs her more than anyone else. I think this is where we are starting to get into the projecting section of the iceberg. Anyone whose mindset is here doesn't hate Ragatha necessarily, but they use the character as a vent ball, a ragdoll of sorts. These are people who have had friends who acted more like pet owners in social situations rather than people with equal agency. You know that they don't mean any harm and they're coming from a loving place, but it's hard to feel comfortable as a person around them. Just to reiterate, Gangle of all people opened up to Pomni first. Gangle! Let's take this projection a step further. The Amazing Digital Circus characters are written in a way that makes them feel hauntingly human, and to an extent makes them all relatable to some degree. If not to how you are currently, then perhaps a phase long forgotten. I can say with utmost certainty that I relate to Jax the most out of the cast. Getting into trouble, having fits of rage, getting punished for feeling, so you gotta learn how to mask good. He's stuck in this catch-22 where he got blamed for a lot of things that weren't his fault, so there wasn't really a consequence for him acting out since he'd feel them all the same, which further convinces everyone around him that he's no good, which makes it harder for him to defend himself from stuff that he didn't do on purpose, which then leads him to doubling down since there's no point into admitting fault. He had everyone else for that. It sucks, and it's not something I would wish on my worst enemy. At the same time, that suffering doesn't excuse you from all the pain you cause onto others. He could have simply isolated himself, but then he probably wouldn't have lasted nearly as long as he did. Let me tell you, ending the cycle sucks. No one notices that you're trying to do better for a minute, so they're still gonna treat you like the menace that you are hoping you're not. And why wouldn't they? 9 out of 10 times, you aren't gonna communicate openly that you're trying to change. That's why you're here in the first place. At least before, you could always count on yourself for self-assurance, but now you're inwardly agreeing with everyone else's criticism of you. You almost want to relapse into how you used to be, to feel the comfort of having your own back again. This is usually the gatekeeper area that separates the people stuck in the cycle they've built for themselves and the ones dead set on breaking through it. It's a very uncomfortable, humbling experience to go through, but ultimately necessary for growth, and is always somewhat self-inflicted. So the reality of taking the punishments dealt to you is a certain one. That doesn't mean you have to like it. Reliving this frustrating experience is frustrating. So even if you co-sign Jax is deserving of how he's treated for what he's about, you'll also see how he's not really being given a lot of space to improve comfortably by the people around him. You don't necessarily blame them now, but provided that you genuinely started applying yourself, there will be a point where warranted becomes excessive, and there's nothing you can really do but tank it. Hell, you don't even have to be the one who applied themselves in a similar dynamic. You could have witnessed firsthand how someone who was attempting to reform themselves was constantly being gatekept from moving on from their worst selves. And mind you, it's never the ones who had the most beef with them from the jump. They're the ones that would rather have nothing to do with you, so they just move on and go their own way. Rather, the ones that truly drag you down happens to be those that claim to have everyone's best interest in mind. The ones that believed in you first that you proved wrong, so they learned their lesson about you when warranted becomes excessive. Okay, but that should only apply to Ragatha if Jax starts applying himself, and Jax is bitch made. We all know this. There is truth in that, but where the discomfort towards Ragatha at this level comes from is from the subconscious recognition that even if he did, Ragatha would probably be the last person to let it go. This may be disparaging for her character, but even with Zubul and Gangle, they'd leave him alone if he left them alone. To the reformed Jaxes watching this video with a Ragatha in their lives, you know damn well the same cannot be assumed for her. Niggas could pick up gardening and volunteer 20 hours a week at their local non-denom church. You're still the prick that yelled at the librarian telling you to shut up. You already banned me from field day, let it go, Miss Seville. Moving on, I think it is fair to mention that a lot of shorthand Ragatha slander comes from the common thought that there lies one scene to rule them all, one scene to define them, one scene to context them all, and in the agenda bind them. That even before everything discussed in this video, it took one scene in the entire show to ruin Ragatha's credibility for a lot of the fan base. But which one did it? Was it Ragatha's Freudian slip midway through episode 5? Perhaps her crash out afterwards in the softball pits? Did people really start hating on Rags during her high in Spudsies? Perhaps taking her unfiltered comments to heart? Maybe Ragatha looking for an apology and subsequently looking for Pomni's approval in episode 2 rubbed people in the wrong way. I've seen a lot of these scenes, even all of them, be pointed out as the reason for half the fandom's heel turn. Well, that and sexism. But none of the examples really make sense to me in a vacuum. Even before episode 6 clarified Ragatha's intent, we'd seen enough of Jax's effects on others to expect a crash out at some point. If not Ragatha, then Gangle or Zubul. Ragatha clearly didn't mean to imply whatever Jax took from either that stargazing conversation or when she was stupid sauce. And once again, I have to point out Jax's penchant to say worse. As for episode 2, yeah, that would suck. So then let's chalk everything up to semantics, as this would fall under level 1. Right?
Oh, you know how men are. Always having the silliest priorities.
Don't I know it?
Okay, so Ragatha fans, Jax haters, you're probably looking at me crazy right now. Jax has and later will do far worse to the other members. That's fair, and this is not to convince you of anything. And yet, to the Jax fans in the audience, you know exactly where I'm getting at. If I were to try and explain to people that see Jax as an irredeemable piece of shit, how the people who recognize and empathize with this cycle view this moment, if you didn't like Entrapta on a leash, I don't think people realize how much this simple gag tore a rift in Ragatha's perception, mostly because people don't talk about it directly. Like I said, detractors are sooner going to talk about scenes from episode 4 and 5, but I think that's entirely because of how much easier it is to point out things to hate there, but it always comes off as nitpicky, since those scenes could never warrant the strong reactions they're apparently getting. My theory is that those nitpicks are a front for how strongly people feel about this scene, without being fully capable of putting it into words. For all intents and purposes, Jax is the kid in class that doesn't play nice with others, so he's held back from recess. Except instead of 15 to 30 minutes, it's 2 hours minimum. He's one of the only members that actually looks forward to these. He's clearly the character that needs stimulation the most. You've confirmed his status as the bottom priority, which is more likely to reinforce his self-serving mentality than to start looking inward. And all this provides for everyone else is a short-term solution in exchange for building long-term resentment, which in real life translates to escalation. I wanted to clarify that Ragatha haters who are on this level of disdain for the character aren't trying to say Jax doesn't deserve consequences or shouldn't be handled directly. That's stupid. He clearly should be confronted for his behavior. But it's the way in which Jax is dealt with in this scenario that feels more like a hand-waved out-of-mind solution that doesn't tackle anything meaningfully for Jax. Instead, it's a solution that's more convenient for everyone else, easy enough to implement, as well as easy enough to justify. It's efficient, I'll give her that, but easy never fits in the same context as sincere. Look me in the eye and tell me Pomni and Kinger, if put in the same position as Ragatha, would leave Jax tied in the corner without so much as a conversation. Bare minimum, the motherfucker wouldn't be gagged. And you wonder why Ragatha's sincerity, when brought up in episode 4 and 5, was seriously being called into question by a portion of the fanbase. That shit didn't come out of nowhere. She's that sweet homeroom teacher that everyone loves that hates you specifically. Oh my god, he's never improving. Fuck! Context matters when it comes to setting the in-universe standards of what sincerity translates to the viewer. It's why a love tap from an adult-oriented show is treated as humor versus a love tap in a preschool show is seen as perpetuating poor behavior. Gooseworks established what sincerity in The Amazing Digital Circus actually looks like. It is confrontational, but it's also not confirming the worst ideas of someone's self-image. Humor be damned. Ragatha isn't bad here, but this solves nothing. Then again, maybe she isn't being hard enough. This next point may seem contradictory to my last point about Ragatha's attitude towards Jax, but it's actually a key reason why it feels like Ragatha's discourse comes from different sides of the fandom rather than a specific type of fan. Let's be so for real here. Who else can actually stand up to Jax physically? Zubul may get their digs in every now and then, but they're still essentially as physically handicapped as you can be in the circus. Gangle is a literal ribbon, Pomni is half his size, and Kinger isn't mentally stable enough to stand up for himself unless he catches Jax lacking in a dark alley. The only one that can check Jax's shit is Ragatha. And what does she do?
Jax! 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 Jax!
Jax doesn't have hands like that. She should be wrecking him, but instead she merely nags without purpose nor resolution. This is the part of the fandom that probably flared up when Stubigatha admitted to wanting Jax to reciprocate affirmation even if she herself didn't like him. That means that part of the reason she doesn't get in his way because some part of her wants Jax to not hate her, letting the other members getting hurt and only being there to pick up the pieces. She's taking the centrist route of letting things things play out without committing to a stance or action. Strong enough to maintain the peace, too weak to enforce it. And then she'll, of course, overcorrect her approach, because rather than Zubal's approach of letting Jax have whatever's on her mind, Ragatha had her frustrations pent up over years of inaction, so when she does let loose, it won't be controlled, and she'll end up saying something that she can't take back, which she is prone to do. It's actually pissing me off just thinking about it. Do I hate Ragatha? No, not really, but I've been around Ragathas before. They're always the selfless types too. It's never a bad person that reacts like this. The ones where they go an extra mile for people, yet simultaneously never make it known what they're going through. They'll never take care of themselves like they should, feeling that the outside praise is worth the lack of peace in their life, but then God forbid that the recipient doesn't react in the manner they were expecting, or messes up once, because that's when they'll crash out disproportionately from the incident, instead unleashing the gathered stress and resentment accumulated over time. For what? Not bending yourself backwards in the same manner as they do that you don't ask or demand of them? Sure, you'll feel terrible the first or second time around and do your best to make it up to them, but then it becomes a pattern of them letting the weight they carry daily crack them, and then you realize that you never asked them to carry such a weight for you in the first place. Suddenly, their acts of service deter you away from them. You want to minimize the likelihood of them stressing themselves for you, then developing anger towards you, and they'll wonder why you barely interact with them anymore. You don't hate them, you can't hate them. Most of the time, unconditional love protects them from scrutiny while also keeping them around you. You have to be damn careful around them because they never let their pain known, and thus you don't know what will and won't tick them off. This goes beyond labeling toxic positivity. They're a 10 out of 10 person 99% of the time, but it's that 1% in the back of your head that pressures every interaction you have with them. You almost wince when they do something for you because you know they keep score to the cash flow. You can't retaliate because their acts of service trump whatever outburst you're experiencing in the moment, and you end up hurting a generally good person in the long run. You can't reciprocate properly because they never let you in enough to know what they are feeling in any given moment, and you can't leave because, again, 99% of the time, people would kill to have someone like them in their lives. So in this scenario, why not funnel your frustrations against a fictional character with vaguely similar characteristics, even if not to those extremes? The one time Ragatha allowed herself to yell at Jax doesn't seem as cathartic to you if you've been on the receiving end for less. Suddenly, those accidental digs ring a harsh bell, don't they? The reality is you could never hate someone like her, but then again, she isn't real. You can tear her to shreds and treat her like the literal ragdoll that she is without long-term consequences. It is also worth noting that the moment Ragatha started coming clean about her anxieties, when she finally started exercising healthy communication, that's when the targeted backlash began to simmer. I know I've been giving a large benefit of the doubt for rationality to apply in the Amazing Digital Circus fandom, but this is how I see the rational individuals treating Ragatha negatively. Well, almost. Well, we've reached the deepest crevice of the iceberg. Anyone that relates to anything before this point does not hate Ragatha. They criticize her, sure, but they don't hate Ragatha. They may say that they do, but those people aren't using the word correctly. Hate is not just a word you can lightly throw around for someone you dislike watching or interacting with. Hate means purposely undercutting their very being, looking at them at their weakest, and spiking their ribs anyway. If they are a recovering addict, you force feed them their addiction. If they're dying of thirst, you gargle a crispy glass of water and spit it on the ground far enough that it evaporates right before they can even reach it. And then you kick them in the ribs. If you've never felt the urge to go past your strength limits to lift up a whole person and tear them apart with your bare hands, with not a single detail left out of your imagination, you've never hated, you are gated. You've never hated a single soul in your life, and you do not hate Ragatha. Those people, those fans of the Amazing Digital Circus that are actually Ragatha haters, aren't Jax fans. They're not even Jax stans. They don't have a favorite character, but they do have a least favorite, don't they? They aren't the cruel, the immature, nor even the troublemakers. They are not the sexist, nor the paranoid. Those fans are like Ragatha. You thought with Gooseworks' realistic character writing that it's a coincidence that Ragatha randomly hates herself? The type of person that wholeheartedly displays selflessness to the point where they do not value themselves over anyone else. The type that keeps their struggles to themselves and lets their grievances build until the boiling point. The type that's self-aware enough to know what their attitude is doing to everyone around them, but can't stick to any other means of expressing themselves in a selfish manner. They already see themselves as doormats, unhelpful, and needlessly picky, and here Ragatha is, hitting them with a goddamn mirror force. They've chosen their favorites in the past, they've known people like Jax, and saw the end result of their treatment, and they take it personally to this day. I bet they're still even thinking about it. They are as critical of Ragatha as they are themselves, and are the ones preying on her downfall because they fucked up in the past doing her shtick. They're the ones projecting that she's in the wrong because Jax can be redeemed from experience of fumbling someone else's growth arc. Does it make sense that they value someone else's growth over themselves? Fuck no. But that's the type of person that they are. They're the ones especially mad at Ragatha getting on Jax's case at every turn, not because he's correct, but because they've reran every argument in the past and what patience and hindsight could have awarded them in their lives, and now have to watch helplessly as Ragatha does it too, in a world where sticks and stones don't break bones, but words can actually hurt. It's not about giving Jax every opportunity to be better, but the one that could make the difference. They'll actually look at Ragatha not caring for herself and hate her more for it, because the lack of self-care is what hurt them too. And she won't commit to anything, one way or the other, at least before episode 6. She's hurting everyone around her, and no one else is taking it seriously or seeing what you're seeing because they haven't been her. The fact that no one else hates Ragatha unironically like you drives you insane. You, yes you, who made it this far into the video, thinking back to the Jax you failed in life and the mistakes you made in handling them. You who went above and beyond for everyone around you, allowed yourself to get caught up in the stress of maintaining that fantasy, and blew up when that fantasy wasn't reciprocated in the wrong moment, and then doubled down because you hurt them more than they hurt you in that moment. You who watches the Amazing Digital Circus essays on YouTube, looking at creator after creator list valid defenses for her, and it all falls on deaf ears because you know better than to give someone like you, someone like her, the benefit of the doubt. Why didn't she do this? Why didn't I say that? Do you know what I have to say about people like you? I love you. I see you do things most people wouldn't get up their ass for and make this world a better place. The fact that you don't care for yourself in the long run destroys me and everyone that loves you, is hurt more by the implication that you've been working yourself like a slave without a moment to yourself. I want you to believe that you are worth inconveniencing others. Who the hell cares that you take up space in life? Take up your space. Either you come first or everyone else comes last. You understand? After everything, I apologize that I couldn't be that video that finally validates your self-hatred. For a title like being somewhat valid of hating Ragatha, I know you were looking for that, but that isn't going to be found here. My final verdict for why Ragatha gets the hate that she does comes from a very combination of every aspect of her discussed earlier in this video. The reason I think that Ragatha hate seems incongruent at times is because, unlike Jax, whose popularity can be summed up within 10 minutes, Ragatha's perception heavily varies from person to person. With Jax, you either like him or despise him for the same reasons that everyone else likes or despises him. You can't say the same about Ragatha. This script is being recorded an hour before episode 7 drops, so I'll record this video knowing that it's probably going to be outdated by the time it releases. Heck, a lot of the criticisms of this video are already outdated by episode 6. My hope is that even if you don't agree with a Ragatha hater's point of view, you at least understand a combination of why they don't mesh with the character. Heck, I don't think I touched on how some disenfranchised Ragathas became Jax's. Conversation for another day. Before I go and watch watched episode 7, let me just say, if you are a Ragatha or you know a Ragatha, please take care of yourself. Know that a good day for you is a great day for everyone. You are the best part of the community, so please make sure to be selfish every now and then. You do so much for everyone. You earn taking time for yourself. You earned being rude for yourself. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let the Jaxes in your life that you might have failed get you down, because you know better next time, and that's all that matters. All right, see you after the video. Okay, so this is a few days after episode 7. Not much that, I guess, deconfirms a lot of what I said. That was actually one of the biggest fears. I had this script planned out way back in September, but between my heavy schedule and everything, I couldn't really get any of the recording done until after finals. Now that I did that, I watched episode 7. I recorded it before episode 7, so that way, if there was any changes, it wouldn't sway the thoughts I had in the moment. Nothing swayed too much, but I will say that episode 7 doesn't really give anything that any of the aspects that I discussed in the video, like, it wouldn't irritate anyone on that spectrum of Ragatha hater. Like, I even asked my friend who is a Jax fan / Ragatha hater. He personally dislikes Ragatha because it reminds him of what he used to be, which is what inspired the idea that Ragatha's biggest haters are people who used to be Ragatha. Anyway, he said that Ragatha was an actual character this episode, which it's funny how Ragatha haters will look at all of these developments that Ragatha had in like the past 6 or something episodes and say like the one where she had like the least amount of input, but at the same time she wasn't like, I understand, because like it's not like Ragatha is like driving the plot or like creating any like inconvenience, but he's basically saying, yeah, this is the one time she came to pop out, be useful, don't be a pick me. It's actually really fun. I'm gonna ask him if I could use like our messages as screenshots, because I'm wondering if people will watch this and assume that like I'm talking out of my ass, like these type of people don't exist. But I'm telling you right now, I know one in real life, and he's not like irregular. I did also want to talk about, this was basically a generalization. Like it's not as though people still think this way. I mean, I do see like Ragatha discourse happen sometimes, but that's only like, from what I've seen, it's only response to like how past Ragatha Discord is, or is like, because I will say there was a very funny Reddit post about it. Yeah, the misogyny would go through the roof if Ragatha was the one who pressed that button, but because it's Jax, we're like doing Fruit Loops. Fruit Loops in conversation about it. As a Jax fan, yeah, that was like one of the most selfish moments any character in fiction has ever made. Even though he was right, that was such a bad gamble, because he could have still pressed blue, been right, and then laughed about it, versus him potentially like, I know there's also Discord about like him getting manipulated, but like, I don't know, I feel like it's more purposeful to know that Jax is the type to make that decision, versus all the devil made me do it, that being Kane, who is public enemy #1. I was not expecting that, low-key. Maybe that was the Rose Diamond, who knows. Oh right, and because I originally forgot to say, if you liked the video, why not leave a like, since this is a much longer video than my Jax discussion. So if you had any points you wanted to add on, if there were things that you disagreed with, honestly, feel free to comment below. These are the kind of things that I'm always like aware that there are multiple different interpretations of what's happening. So if you have like a different interpretation of characters, do let me know, and also let me know if like you disagree with something. I actually really like being able to discuss with these characters, because it's uniquely fun to talk about characters in the Amazing Digital Circus. They're nuanced enough that if someone comes up with something ridiculous, then it's not out of the question, you know? They're clear-cut enough that you know when someone is reaching, you know? So if you think I am reaching, like, let me know. But the conclusion of this has basically been that Ragatha gets hate by association. She herself isn't bad, but man, are there people like her that just... Yeah, then subscribe. I wanted to see what does better, the video essays or my Smash videos. Right now it's looking like my Smash videos are fighting for their life, and honestly I'm thinking about like restructuring the channel at this point. Who knows? Yeah, peace, have a good day.